What if I told you the cruelest voice you'll ever hear is not your boss, your partner, or your family? It's the one inside your own head. Welcome back to Love By. I'm Adria, your host, the space where we keep it raw, unfiltered, and real about life, love, and everything in between. And today we are going to be diving straight into depression, the fight that feels like you versus you. We're talking about that voice in your head. I know you guys know the voice I'm talking about. The one that sounds like you, but it's working against you, and how to finally separate your true self from the depression lies. But before we get into it and before we dive in, I just want to give you guys a quick disclaimer. This episode is for education and personal growth purposes. It is not a substitute for professional therapy or medical guidance. Just wanted to FYI. And here's the reality, guys. Depression impacts over 280 million people globally. In the US, that's nearly 1 in 5 adults every year. So that means that 1 in 5 people are impacted by depression every year. But the hardest part isn't just the sadness or the lack of energy, it's the voice. The relentless inner critique whispers, "You're not enough. You'll never get better. Why even try?" But here's the truth, the voice is not you, it's depression. And today we're going to break down 5 powerful steps to separate yourself from it and step back into your power. And some questions that I want us to take a moment and we can reflect on is, when was the last time you caught yourself believing a thought you didn't really question? Do you ever wonder if your voice is in your head is actually depression, pretending to be you? And what would you feel like to finally push back and reclaim your own voice? Let's get into it. 5 ways to step into you versus you, the voice in your head, and taking back control of your story. Depression is more than a bad day or a low mood. It's a persistent condition that affects how you think, how you feel, and how you function daily. Depression impacts mood, thought patterns, energy, and physical health. And as far as the Psychiatric Association, it also feels like persistent sadness, loss of interest, hopelessness, and difficulty functioning. And some of the symptoms might feel like low mood or emptiness, loss of interest in activities you usually enjoy, changes in sleep or appetite, difficulty concentrating or making decisions, feelings of guilt and or worthlessness, physical fatigue or body aches. And again, we remember that depression impacts 280 million people globally. 1 in 5 adults in the US experience it. And it's one of the leading causes of disability globally. And here's a thought. Have you ever felt like you were going through the motions, functioning on autopilot, but inside feeling empty or defeated? One of the hardest parts of depression is the inner voice it creates. The voice can make you feel like the problem, like it's you, you're the problem, but it's actually a symptom of the disorder. Now that we understand what depression is and how it hijacks your thoughts, let's dive into the 5 steps to take back control. And starting with step number 1, which is name the voice. So we know that it's our inner chatter. It can be a critique. It can be something that's in our mind that's making us feel this way. Depression distorts reality. The inner voice criticizing you isn't your truth, it's depression. Naming it creates a psychological distance from it. It's no longer I'm failing, it's the critic is telling me I'm failing. And examples of names could be the critic, constantly judging, the liar, twisting reality, the shadow, sneaks in when you least expect. Stats will show us that externalizing negative thoughts reduces the emotional impact and makes them easier to manage. So here's a question. If you had to give that inner voice a name right now, what would it be? For 1 week, let's jot down what the voice says. Seeing patterns exposes exaggeration and lies, and we can physically see it, and we can name it, and we can work on that. Comment below and share the names of your inner voice. Subscribe for more strategies to reclaim your voice. Once you've named it, the next step is spotting its patterns because the voice isn't random. And here's why. Stress, isolation, rejection, lack of sleep. Social media can amplify negative self-talk. Knowing triggers give you a head start to plan coping strategies. And some examples of trigger might be scrolling social media and comparing yourself, quiet evenings alone with your thoughts, work deadlines or relationship conflicts can also amplify that. So when that happens, when does your inner voice speak the loudest? And let's start to track those triggers for 1 week. The time, the situation, and what the voice said. Awareness is the first step of control. Some stats I would love to share with you guys is frequent social comparison online is linked to higher rates of depression and anxiety. So again, I've said this before and I've spoken about this because I myself had dealt with that before, and social media will do that to you, right? And you start believing whatever it is that you see in front of you, and your voice, you start listening. But it's important to remember that to separate that voice from your actual self and just from those negative thoughts that can feel like depression. I'd love for you guys to comment below with one trigger you've noticed. Now that we see the patterns, right? It's time to reclaim control. Step 3 is about taking back control. So, depression, as we know, thrives on control. Reclaiming the mic interrupts the voice before it dominates your thought. Here's a simple one you can start using today. Say to yourself, that's depression talking. That is not me. Take a breath with that. Let it sink in. Because when you actually speak it out loud, it creates space between you and those harsh thoughts. Ask yourself, what would you say back if depression didn't get the final word today? And I would love for you guys to try this. Keep a small list of affirmations, phrases that remind you of your strength. When the voice creeps in, again, and it happens to everyone, spend even 10 or 15 seconds repeating them. It's a tiny practice, but over time, it strengthens your mental boundaries. And did you know, research shows that thought interruption and counter statements reduce depressive symptoms over time. If this resonates, comment below with your personal phrase for reclaiming the mic. And don't forget to subscribe for more tools to take your power back. All right, so let's move on. Step 4 is about rewriting the story. Depression loves absolute words like always, never, but they're not the truth, right? Here's the deal. Depression is sneaky. It loves to exaggerate, twist, and make everything feel permanent, like you can't change it, but you can rewrite the narrative. For example, I'll get better, or I should say, I'll never get better. And it can become, I'll struggle now, but I've survived challenges before. Nothing matters becomes small wins matter. Even getting out of bed today, that's impactful. Take a moment. Which reoccurring thoughts could you rewrite right now? And try this as a daily practice. Pick one negative thought, just one. Rewrite it in your own words, or even say it out loud. This is about giving your brain a little reset. Studies show that self compassion interventions improve mood and reduce depression symptoms. Comment below with your rewritten thought and subscribe for more strategies to strengthen your self compassion. And finally, step number 5, visualize the battle. This one's powerful. Imagine a courtroom, right? Depression is the prosecutor laying out every failure, fear, and insecurity of yours. You are the defense attorney, calmly presenting your evidence, showing your wins, your strengths, your resilience. Think of your daily wins. It can look like reaching out to a friend, completing a task you didn't feel like doing, taking care of yourself, even even in small ways. Ask yourself, what evidence could you bring to prove you are stronger than your depression? Write down 3 pieces of evidence every day. No win is too small. It all counts. And it shifts perspective for yourself. Research in positive psychology shows us that daily gratitude or achievement journaling reduces depressive symptoms and improves mood. Comment below with one piece of evidence you were proud of today and subscribe to keep building your inner strength. Remember this: depression will always like to steal your voice, but it doesn't get the final word. Share this episode with someone who struggles with the voice in their head and needs to hear that they are not their depression. Subscribe because this isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Healing out loud together. Until next time, stay loved, stay grounded, and most of all, stay you. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for next week's episode. Bye.